All right, this is second half of our show, and we have a couple on here, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, and Mr. Anderson is a diabetic, and we talked about how important it is to have a support group, whether it's a spouse or a good friend, someone who's going to tell you, you shouldn't eat that, or you need to exercise, or this is something you should eat. Let me ask you, Raymond, how important is breakfast food? Because sometimes people skip, and you talked about it, and then they're hungry, and of course, when you're hungry, or you eat just about anything. Mm-hmm. I would think that breakfast is important.
I think breakfast is very important, Ken, and primarily because it sets the tone for the day. Mm-hmm. So if you start out with a high carb, bad for you food, you can expect the day to kind of follow that. So I like to start out right away with like blueberries, almond milk, stuff like that, first thing. And that way I've set the tone for the day, feeling good about it. I'm not feeling, all puffed up and full already. So it's a good way to start. So
you take insulin. So you were showing us your little shot. So do you take that when you first get up in the morning? Is it before you eat or after you eat?
Before you eat. It usually takes, depending on the brand you have or whatever, about 20 minutes before eating is a good time to apply these, and that gives your body a chance to start getting ready. Because what insulin does is allows your cells to accept the sugar. Okay. So if that doesn't unlock the cell so the cell can take the sugar, it just floats around. The sugar just floats around your body until the kidney tries to clean it out.
And how many shots you take a day?
One for each meal, and then I have one that's twice a day for long acting, one at night and one in the morning.
Really? Okay.
So it's 5 a day.
5 a day, okay. And how long have you been doing that, Raymond?
About 6 years now.
About 6 years now, okay, all right. Was it difficult, where do you take it?
Right in my side.
Okay. Was it difficult at first? You never know what you're going to have to do. I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but I always think, okay, this is another subject, but drug dealers, I'm like, why are they shooting up themselves and they don't have to? I mean, it's bad enough when you have to go to the doctor and you get, blood and all of that. So were you comfortable at first doing it, or it took a while?
Well, Ken, that's the picture I had in my head. All these old movies where the guy's strapping a big old rubber band around there and taking a big old, and that's what my vision was. I was like, oh boy. But this thing, you can tell, it's actually pretty small. They've advanced it. You screw a tiny pin needle on there, and you just put it in it. I mean, it's very short, depends on your body type, but it's pretty easy to do. But a lot of people don't want to do it anyway. I don't want to do it. It still leaves a little mark, so our objective is get off these medicines and not have to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you all, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson. And let me just ask you, so Mr. Anderson, you were diagnosed how long ago with diabetes?
Well, I've had it for 8 years now.
Okay.
And I was just diagnosed about 4 years ago.
Really? So you had it 8 years, but you were just diagnosed. Okay. So what was going on? We talked about in the first half of our show. Did you see anything different with what was happening with your body?
Yeah. I had picked up a lot of weight, for one thing. Then I was always sweating and kind of tired all the time. I couldn't figure out what it was. And most time I eat something, it just come right back up. When I'm working or out there in the yard or anything, couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then I was out there barbecuing one day, and I thought with the smoke getting in my eyes. So I went and took me a nap, and then I had to go to the hospital because I had a light stroke.
Oh boy!
And that's when I found out that I was a diabetic.
And that's been 4 years ago. Okay.
Right.
So, Mrs. Anderson, did you see any signs? Because I know sometimes wives notice their husbands, their health and the way that they act, and they know when things are different about them. And sometimes they say, what's your first name?
Dennis.
Dennis, you need to go get checked, so you don't seem right. Oh, honey, I'm fine, I'm all right. So did you try, 4 years he was diagnosed before he went, I think he said. Right. Yeah. So did you see something different in Dennis?
I didn't see any signs because, sir, I really didn't know too much about being a diabetic then. Because like he said, he was he was outside. And he had just got through barbecuing, so he came in the house, and I noticed something about his mouth was like a little twisted. But I didn't want to alarm him. I didn't, say anything.
Right.
So I say, maybe you need to go to the, we need to go to the emergency room.
Right.
But, he just put it off and say, no, I'm not going today. So I called my daughter, and I was telling her about, how he was looking and about his mouth. And she said, Mama, you need to try to get him to go to the emergency room. So I said, okay, we'll just wait till tomorrow, which was the next day was Monday. I say, I'll try to get him to go then. So then we went that Monday. And that's when he found out that he was a diabetic. But still, after he found out, he was in denial. He wouldn't, he wouldn't admit it.
Right.
And they told him all, that he needed to do.
Right.
And I was trying to get him to, to do right too, but he would not do right. He was just mainly meat and potato man. He would not eat any vegetables. He would not eat any, fruits or anything.
Right.
So, like he said, a couple of months ago, I was in my aerobics class, and this lady was in there with me. And she got up before the class and told them about this new doctor that was helping her. Her A1C was this high at one point, and it was this low now. And so after class, I said, I got to talk to her, because my husband, he done just got out of control. He won't do anything. He act like he don't even care about his health anymore. And like I say, he was in denial. He wasn't admitting it. But I got the number to the Dr. Gibson office, and I called the next day and made an appointment with them.
Right.
And from then on, it been a heaven sent. Like I say, he was the kind of person, I've been married to him for a while, and I thought I couldn't change it. I tried to change him, from his eating habit, but I couldn't do it. It took Dr. Gibson and Casey and them and all the staff there at their diabetes clinic to change his mind. Now he eating vegetables, he eating more vegetables.
And now he's
and
telling
fruits
you
than
now,
I do. Yeah,
Tell you what to eat,
telling me how to eat vegetables.
Are you
and
on any
fruits.
medicine, or do you do the shots, or take the pill or anything?
I take the pill.
You take the pill. How often you have to take that?
I take
Is it once a day, twice
once a day.
Once a day, twice a day.
no.
But your eating is much better, and I'm sure you feel much better.
I would say I'm vegetarian now.
Oh, you're vegetarian, not the meat man, huh? So Raymond, I guess this is what you teach at your class, because people like Mrs. Anderson, perhaps who have a difficult time with their husband or someone that you love and care for, to really, to change those eating habits, or really just come to the reality that, this is something serious, and that I need to really make some really healthy choices. So you teach them how to really make that transformation.
Well, the Anderson story is kind of interesting to me too, because I've got kids, and I can try to teach them something all day long, and they won't listen. But they'll go to someone else, and, oh yeah, and they'll listen. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to have a different perspective, a different person telling you. So that's one part right there.
Right.
There's a lot of group support where they meet the other diabetics and they encourage one another. They ask how each other are doing, and they get it's just a group thing where they can get a certain dynamic they can't just get on a one-on-one with a doctor a lot of times. So we disseminate this training over a period of time, which is great. Like I said, when I was diagnosed, they sat me down and told me everything in 2 hours, and I was still reeling from the fact that I had no income, so I wasn't really absorbing it. But since this is spread out, but it's still relatively close together in time, people can retain more of it and apply more of it to their lives.
Right. So, Mr. Anderson, and I like your story, because that shows that you can change. Sometimes it's not easy, but you knew that your life was at stake, and you wanted to be there for your wife and your children, and so you had to really make some lifestyle change. So now your meal consists of what mostly?
Well, first thing I do when I get up in the morning time, I get me a cup of coffee and a banana.
Okay.
And that's it up until about 2 hours. Then I get me another banana and a cup of coffee.
Right.
And then for lunchtime, I just get a salad and eat it.
Really? Okay.
Then later on in the day, I guess I'll go get me a grapefruit. I eat that. She has some raisin in there. I Whatever fruit she having, I eat.
You eat that. And you wasn't the fruit kind of man,
I
huh?
didn't eat no kind
Right,
of fruit.
right. You stayed away from it. You wanted some meat and potatoes and all the stuff that you were used to. So did it run in your family? Did you have any other relatives?
Yeah, I found out my mother hated it.
Okay.
So
Right. So, Mrs. Anderson, so you had to change the way that you prepared meals. So how does that work?
Actually, I've eaten fruits and vegetables, but I just couldn't get him to
Okay,
eat
you bought them. They were at the
Basically,
house.
yes.
He just didn't. He bypassed them, huh?
Yeah, he bypassed it. So I really didn't have to change my way of, what I was getting because it was already there at the house.
Right.
But now I can't keep
You
fruits
can't.
and vegetables at the house
Right,
because he eat them all up.
He's
But
easy.
that's good too, so I don't mind.
Right. So how do you do during the holidays? Because you've been diagnosed for a few years now. So, and that's what we're trying to help those who maybe doing really well now, but when you're around a lot of food and things that you haven't eaten in a while, but you know that they're good. How are you
Well-
disciplining yourself to be able to enjoy the holidays and
on
not?
holidays, if I know I'm going somewhere out to a party, somebody get me a fruit and eat it. I take some with me,
Okay.
and then I always trying to find out what people be on cook.
So what's your name?
Inez.
So you say, Inez, can you call them and see what they got on the menu? You're like, I can't ask those people what they cooking. You just eat what you can eat.
I just walk around and see what they got.
Exactly right. Okay.
Then I chose to get, if they got some fruits in there, I eat that.
Right. So Raymond, is it all right? I mean, I know you're not on really just, most people you may not call and say what's on the menu or whatever. Is it all right to take something? Is that all right?
Well, I don't know if I'd take something.
Or should I go out to the car and have my banana and apple in the car and go take a bite or whatever?
But like I said, I like to eat something at home. I get some vegan food from here in town. We got some healthy places in town. One's called Healthy Chef Meals. It's all plant-based. Eat something like that before you go. Fill up a little bit because your body speaks to you.
Right.
And your body says, I need something, but we misinterpret it. It needs nutrition. It needs vitamins and minerals and amino acids and these things. And then we feed it junk, and it sits there an hour and goes, that wasn't all I needed, and says I'm still hungry.
Right.
So we eat more junk. But if you can fill it up with good, nutritious food,
Right.
it doesn't speak to you the same way. And all of a sudden you're like, hey,
Okay.
I feel better.
All right. We're going to take another break. We're going to have another couple on, but thank you all for coming on. But moderation, is the key,
Right.
Mr. Anderson. So you can get a little bit of when you go out to dinner or go to a friend's house, because you don't want to make them feel bad. You say, I noticed you weren't eating anything. I'm a good cook, so just take a little bit, and then just know when to stop. All right, we'll take a break and we'll be right back. So stay with us. All right, we're just about to end our show. We have another couple. We've been talking about, diabetes, and it runs rampant. I said earlier, 29.1 million Americans are diabetics, and so everybody knows somebody, and you may be watching, and you may be suffering from this disease. But the good thing about it is controllable and it's manageable. And there's a place in town that will help you with your eating, and that's what we want to talk a little bit about. We want to talk about exercise. We want to talk about, so what do you all do to help people? If someone's watching, they say, you know what, I really need to come to this program because I need to know how to better prepare my foods, and I need to know how to eat healthy and those kinds of things. So how can you help them?
So when the patient comes to our clinic, the first thing we do is I do a full assessment on the patient. We talk about what are they eating, and I get them to check their blood sugars before meals.
Okay.
So those numbers are very key, so I can see if they're getting higher later in the day, if they're waking up high in the morning. Then the second week when they come back, I put what's called a continuous glucose monitor on them. And what it does is, besides the 3 blood sugar checks that they're checking, it gives me 1,000 readings of their blood sugars because they keep it on all day long.
Right.
And I'm able to make adjustments to their medications from their other primary care provider once I see the whole picture.
Okay.
And besides just the 3, are they dropping in the middle of the night? If their blood sugar going to 40, they're sleeping. They don't know
Right.
if, they're only checking before breakfast, before lunch, before dinner. So it gives me another avenue to, treat the whole patient, not just those numbers.
Right, okay.
And then they come for a 12-week curriculum. So each week they come, they get a new topic because you can't, in 2 hours, you can't learn everything there is to learn about diabetes. You
Right.
can't. So we put it over a 12-week process, and they'll see me some visits, and on other visits they'll see just the educator. And also we have a cooking class. And I think a lot of, when Mr. Anderson was on earlier, he got to try new vegetables, because in the class all we cook is healthy food.
Right.
And so it gave him an avenue to say, you know what, this is really good.
Right.
And so they leave with recipes after the class, and even with the 12-week curriculum, we give them recipes for them to go home and try.
Right, okay. Well, I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Tolliver for coming on the show. Now, who's the diabetic?
I'm the diabetic.
Okay, all right. So Mr. Tolliver, how long you been a diabetic?
I've been a diabetic over 20 years.
Really? Okay, all right. And when you were first diagnosed, had it been going on for a while? Or what made, let me ask you this first for some people who are, so what made you, how did you find out?
Well, when I went to the doctor, he said I was borderline.
Okay.
So that's all he said.
Right.
No information was passed on other than borderline.
Right.
So I figured everything was, hey, I'm borderline, so I can go ahead and continue doing what I'm doing.
Right.
But
And how long after you go for your checkup or whatever physical, and he says you're borderline, so how long after that you were actually, diagnosed? From borderline to when?
well, probably 10 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to him. Can you be borderline that long?
Well,
I mean, you can be borderline that long if you start to change.
and the question is, did you go back to the primary care physician?
I did not go back to
See,
Okay.
so what
Okay.
happens is usually we only go, males, and some females, they don't feel bad, then they don't go to the doctor. They can wait 5 years
Right.
and still, and then, they diagnose them later. So
Okay.
he hadn't gone back in 10 years.
And that doesn't mean that he didn't have it. He
Right.
just hadn't gone back
There you
to
go.
be diagnosed with it. Okay,
Right.
all right. And so after you were diagnosed, what did you start to change, or did you what was going on?
I started changing, started a little exercising. The eating habit was still bad, but
Right.
I did do a little exercise by walking.
Right.
And in the present time, I'm doing yard work,
Right.
a lot more yard work,
Right. Okay.
just to get the exercise in.
Right. Okay. So, Mrs. Tolliver, you're not a diabetic.
No, I'm not.
Okay. So, how have you helped your husband, through this?
I started preparing our foods differently. Because we have the cooking classes at the center, we also partnered with a couple that we met when we first started, and they were
Oh,
just
that's a
about
good way.
done.
Okay.
So if I run into issues or problems on how to prepare something, I will call Mrs. Holland and ask her how to do it. For instance, my husband never ate greens of any kind, period.
You don't like
Never.
greens?
Never, ever. So what I'll do with that, I'll put them in the blender. For instance, I'll put kale and spinach in the blender with a little bit of honey, and do it like that with a little bit of water, and make him a green smoothie. So he'll drink that. But if he's
okay.
going to sit down and eat it, he's not eating it.
Right.
Or, for instance, fixing green beans. In the can, I'll rinse them off, and then I will cook them with, just to give a different flavor, with smoked turkey necks.
Oh, okay.
In order to change, and it has helped both he and I together.
Right.
So in order to help him with his diabetes, I eat the same, so it's also helping me.
Right. And so at first, were you eating a lot of fried food, a lot of food with salt and all of that?
Yes.
Mr. Tolliver? Okay. You have been doing that probably all your life.
All my life.
Right, okay.
Like I said, born and reared Louisiana.
Right. So that says when you're born in real Louisiana. The one thing, Casey, that I see that's happening here, even though the spouse who is not a diabetic, it helps them to start to eat better so that they won't become a diabetic, because that way, they can still be able to help the other spouse. So it's changing your cooking habits altogether, so everybody in the house is eating better and more, healthier than before.
Right.
Yes, and I mean, you hit it on the head. You cannot have the trash in the house, the
Right.
cookies, the chip and cookies, and expect the person who's going through it not to eat it. If
Right.
it's there, so my first visit, I tell them, get it out the house.
Right.
Okay? If you're hungry, if you have the chips and you have the carrots, which you can go to the chips.
Right.
But if the chips are not there, you're not going to drive to the grocery store, and you'll eat the carrots if you're truly hungry. And I tell that for my pediatric patients as well as my adults.
Right.
but the family as a whole. You cannot expect him not to eat Popeye's chicken if you're going to sit there and eat Popeye's chicken in front of him. The smell makes you hungry. So
exactly.
everybody
But T, this your food, this your blender, your spinach and greens in the blender, but I'm going to eat some Southern classic here. You just, if it's bothering you, you go outside.
it won't work.
It won't work,
Yeah,
right.
it will not work. So everybody in the home has to be on board.
Right, right. And so, as I asked before, because, you know, I'm thinking about the holidays, so I'm sure you have family, and you probably go to some, you know, little social events, a party. So, how have you been able to discipline yourself in those surroundings when people are saying, you know, got another piece of pound cake, and, you know, you got to have some peach cobbler and all of that. So, how are you able to say, you know, thank you, but no thank you?
Well, I do it this way. If they got it, I pack it up, take it home. Like I say, I do have my wife's grandmother, who's 102.
Really?
She loved that stuff too.
Okay, all right.
So I can pack it, take it with me, and she'll enjoy it.
Right. Okay. All right. And so, what about you? Because when you're invited to places, you know, you want to partake, because you don't want to make the people, you know, feel bad that you're not. Are you all comfortable telling your friends or people you're going to places with, or dinner, lunch, that your husband's a diabetic?
I'm comfortable with that
Okay.
because it not only helps me to keep an eye on him and his health, but it also helps my friends, because
Right.
some of them may have a family member that's a diabetic, but it helps me if I'm not with him, that somebody else will keep him in line.
Right.
And so T has,
That in line thing, huh?
because the hardest part I think for him was not skipping meals. He had a hard time skipping meals. I mean, T just would not eat.
Right.
Sometimes he'd go eat breakfast and then he'd go all day and may not eat anything until dinner time.
Right, oh.
And skipping meals was a big issue, or not skipping meals was a big issue for him. So once we got over that hurdle, because everybody knew, well, Mr. T, have you eaten? You know, so we started packing up fruit in the refrigerator and different things of that sort. He didn't have an excuse not to carry something with him.
Right.
And if he got too difficult, I tell him, well, I'm gonna call Casey.
Okay. So are you on? Do you take the shot or take the pill or anything now?
I take the shot
You take the shot, and how many times per day?
twice a day.
Twice a day. Okay. Did you have to lose weight, or where you were?
Well, I have lost weight.
You have lost weight. Okay.
Since I made it to the clinic.
Okay, so that clinic is great. So we
Yeah.
really, so exercise is also important. I know everybody may not have a gym membership. Everybody may not go for hour and a half, but basic, a little walking or whatever. I think before that, Mrs. Anderson, goes to the gym, do aerobics or whatever. Everybody may not can do a lot of strenuous exercise, but some exercise is better than none at all.
Exactly. So the recommendations: 180 minutes of exercise. A new patient comes at
180
clinic
minutes when?
per week.
Oh, okay. You scared
100
somebody.
180 minutes per week. And
Okay.
so, when the patient comes to the clinic, my recommendation is just to start walking for 15 minutes a day. You can work yourself up to 30 minutes a day.
Right.
6 days a week will give you 180 minutes.
Right.
And if you can't, we have some chair aerobics, chair
Oh,
exercises the
okay.
patients can do. To get to the person up onto the level where they can exercise.
Right.
But for the most times, people just walk. And walking is a great exercise.
Right.
We just got to consistently do it.
Right, right. Now, who can come to the classes, Casey? I mean, somebody's watching and say, I would really love to go to this class because, I need to learn how to prepare meals and different kinds of meals, because nobody still wants to eat the same thing all the time. So I'm sure there are a variety of great meals that you can prepare, for the person, your spouse or whoever, that they can enjoy a variety of food.
So the Diabetes Assessment and Management Center is at 1560 Irvin Place, and the phone number there is 318-212-1194.
212-1194. And what is it called?
Diabetes Assessment and Management Center.
Okay.
And we have type 1 diabetics, we have type 2 diabetics, and just to teach these patients, and so anybody who has a diagnosis of type 1, type 2 can come to the clinic and they will get the same curriculum, and they will see me as their provider.
Okay. What about if you're borderline, like Mr. Tolliver said, you've been gone to your doctor and you say, diabetes or whatever, you're not careful. could those people come so they can start
Yes.
to eat right, so they can kind of, you know?
And I do see them monthly. They're not on the 12-week curriculum, but yes, I teach them which foods are causing their blood sugars to go up. And once they, make those changes in a month, we'll check their A1C again, and usually it comes down.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you all, so very much. You and Raymond, you're doing a great job, and thank the couples who have come on. And I hope we've helped those of you out there who are been diagnosed with, diabetes, because it is manageable and controllable. But you really have to make up your mind that you want to change your eating habits and your exercise, and you can do some of those things to really reverse it. So thank you all very much. We want you all to enjoy your holiday. Moderation is the key. You don't have to not eat anything, but just make sure that you're not overdoing. And that's for all of us, whether we're diabetics or not. All right, thank you all so very much. That's our show. We want to thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Citywide TV Presents. Take care.